podcast. The Idlecast.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Scott McDermott.
I was bit by a black widow in Hamul in my sleep.
Harrison Perkins.
Every muscle in my body is clenching right now.
And
Scott Clark.
You know, I would like to get to know a tarantula.
their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
Good morning, Vietnam!
We'll do it live. No, we'll do it live.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
There's only one thing I hate more than lying. Skim milk, which is water that's lying about being milk.
Well, gentlemen.
There you go. Good morning. I hoped you would enjoy that.
That's one of my favorite lines from Parks and Rec, actually. Yeah.
Yet another show that I might have seen one episode of Parks and Rec. And so now I think maybe I will go back and watch it and see what I think. But I ran across that on social media and I thought there were a bunch of those clipped together, edited, stitched
Ron
together,
Swanson.
as they say.
He gives voice to so many of us. Yeah.
on some things. Yes. So when I saw that, I thought of you two guys. I thought, you know what? I bet they would enjoy this. Some of these are pretty funny. We forgot to say last week that Scott is on assignment. I realized after we finished.
And I kept thinking about it the whole time. And I was like, we need an opening. And then it never came. It was just closed. And so keep the mystery alive sometimes.
Yeah, he's on assignment. Yeah, we haven't excluded him or nothing bad's happened. He
excluded himself.
Just temporarily.
Yeah, and on purpose and without nefarious workings to the best of our knowledge.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually thought, so last night I was thinking about, what we're doing today. And I thought we should call him up so everyone can hear him. We can hear his voice because I kind of miss him a little bit. But then I thought, no, that's not right. We should leave him alone. So
I actually don't remember what he's doing, so we probably shouldn't.
Just rudely.
I can't often get him to pick up exactly. I say, can you talk? And then we find a time rather than. Yeah,
this is interesting, this thing of texting. And it's fine now. I get it. At first I was puzzled, why are people texting me before they call me? Because obviously in the old world, in a previous century, when you wanted to call someone, you just called them. But as I thought about it, I realized, okay, no, this actually makes some sense because in the old world, in the before times, we didn't walk around with our phones in our pockets and we were not constantly subject to being called. So now that we are, I think it actually makes some sense. But it's funny. I'm pretty careful about texting younger people before I call them because I know how sensitive they are to this, that it's considered a fairly serious social breach just to call someone without any notice. But if they are my chronological peers, I just call them most of the time.
Yeah, and if I'm close to them, I think there's a sense in which, because texting is the prevailing way of communicating, that a call out of nowhere almost triggers worry. What's going on? What's this about? It must be bad.
Must be bad. Yeah. No. Well, you may call me unannounced anytime.
And I do. Yeah. If I do call you if I'm need, I don't. And that's fine. Wait until.
Yeah. I don't assume that when the phone, I was going to say rings, but it doesn't ring anymore because I have it on silent pretty much perpetually now. So I don't assume that it's bad news.
Curated my ringtones effectively at this point that I want to hear them.
Oh, so you have different ringtones for different people?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I had that at one time for someone.
Not everybody has. I mean, there is just like a general one.
Do you have a ringtone for me?
I do. Well, it's not just for you, but it is for.
I'm in the class of people who get this ringtone.
Yeah. And it's the people that I'm like, I know I want to pick that one up. So
And what is that tone? Do you know? Is it notable?
I do. It's the theme song from Hawaii Five-0. I don't, we'd probably get in trouble, but if it's in the background,
I don't know. Yeah.
I can play it.
Yeah,
but
you can play it. I mean, it's not an issue. I mean, if you do it too much, you get in trouble with Spotify. And if you do it too much, some platforms may demonetize you, but we're not being monetized by anyone. There we go. That's one of the great television theme songs of all time. So
I think this is the new one.
I was very pleased with when they did the new Hawaii Five-0 that they kept the theme song and they kept it intact. You know, they didn't mess around with it too much.
That theme song's not a dog now, is it?
No. Who said it was a dog?
You said, because I kept saying we can say intact about all kinds of things.
Oh.
And you just said the theme song is intact. And you guys said, no, it's just about dogs.
I don't think I said that. I think that was someone else who said that. Because there are figures of speech, because I understand that there are figures of speech.
On purpose or not, we've just landed that plane and I feel vindicated to the ceiling.
I can see that. That's funny.
I think I do think they juiced up the theme song a little bit.
Okay.
But I mean, they kept it was probably just a better recording. They probably redid it. Same music. Cause it's clearer. I think the bass and the drum is more driving in the new one. I actually did like it. I didn't think they tinkered to its detriment. I thought they took the raw material and actually made it better. Yeah. So you have the Hawaii Five-0 class, and I need to answer this if at all possible.
Okay, nice.
There's only maybe 4 or 5 that have that one. So.
I just have
Sarah has her own.
I just have the one ringtone. I don't even know where they are. Where do we keep ringtones anymore?
Settings.
Yeah, I'm in
sounds.
Sounds and haptics. Yeah, here we go.
It's second down and 1 to go for the touchdown. In the eye, the ball to Kenny. Kenny dives over, touchdown. Here he gives to Kenny. Kenny over the left side, touchdown.
There we go. That
nostalgia for a great moment, I'm sure.
That's exactly what that is. Yeah, that's Lyle Bremser, who was the announcer of Nebraska football games when I was a boy. And there's some clips of Jeff Kinney scoring important touchdowns. Most importantly, the game of the century in November 1971. Nebraska defeated Oklahoma 35-31 in one of the most exciting games in the history of American college football. And I know Jeff Kinney. I mean, we're not dear friends. He doesn't call me, but I knew him once upon a time.
He doesn't give you your own ringtone?
No, he doesn't.
Or even put you in the Hawaii Five-0 class.
He probably doesn't even remember me, but I remember him because he was a hero and an icon, and he was in the same congregation I was. We both attended Southview Baptist Church, and we played church league basketball together, and I used to see him some. I hung out with him a little bit. And when I worked at the YMCA and was in college, high school or college, I was quite probably college. I was quite impoverished, and I needed some tennis shoes. He saw that I needed tennis shoes, and he gave me a pair of tennis shoes.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which I wore for quite a while. Wore them out. Should have saved them, but I was too poor to save a pair of tennis shoes. I actually needed shoes on my feet without holes.
We
in
could have
them.
bagged them and kept it just as a souvenir. Jeff Kenny gave,
exactly.
after they were done.
Yeah, I could have. Yeah, but bronzing those would have been somewhat difficult. There wasn't a lot left by the time I was done with them. No, they needed to be thoroughly destroyed, those shoes, after I was done. So I used to go around without socks, only to find out that that's actually a really bad idea.
Is that like a Ryan Seacrest move on your part?
No, it wasn't fashion. I just was single, stupid, I don't know, uncivilized.
I find it uncomfortable. I think it's not often that I've been without socks, but I don't find it comfortable.
Well, I don't do it now, except I noticed that with the modern running shoes, sometimes they're actually more comfortable without socks. They actually make them now so that you don't need socks. Some of them, the way that they design them.
Do you do like the calf height
Yes.
sock, like gym socks with shorts?
Yeah. When I'm walking or running, I use the little low cut socks.
But that's not the calf height. Yeah.
No, not calf height. No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. The little
athletic socks are perfectly acceptable. It's when you do the calf height athletic socks with shorts.
Oh, no. I'm not. I'm not
then
that
it's like
old.
you've abandoned
I'm not that old.
all decorum for the world.
Exactly. No.
The years have gotten a hold of you so firmly that you're just not even grounded in perceptions.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
No.
Is everybody dumb? Certainly.
No, I don't live in Miami, and I'm not, 85 years old. So no, I'm not.
I don't even mind that.
that.
Like, fine, they have their place with long trousers, but shorts. Come on, what are we doing?
Yeah. When you're hiking and you need to protect your legs or whatever, or when I was playing basketball, obviously we wore high socks.
I think
back
they
then,
don't do that
calf
anymore,
high
do they? It's
socks.
the ankle height ones, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. But if you're on the floor as much as I was on the floor, it's good to have things on your legs. And so floorboards were just part of the deal. I mean, if I always figured if I left a game without a floor burn, I hadn't done anything. That was part of the game. I mean, in fact, I had calluses and stuff where the floor burns used to go. That was just the way it was. But otherwise, no. I mean, if I'm going hiking or something like that, if I'm on the range, whatever, you want to, protect yourself.
Golf or shooting?
Otherwise, shooting. No, I wouldn't. I don't think I necessarily wear tall socks at the driving range. I haven't been to the driving range for a long, long time. I used to go. It's kind of fun in a frustrating sort of way. Yeah, since I hurt my back and this is 2 or 3 back injuries ago, I haven't been to the golf range. I probably would be good for me. No. If I'm at the range, I'm at the
golf once a year with a few of my elders. That's it.
Oh, interesting. How does that go?
It's good. I enjoy that. It's a good time with them. I'm very blessed. I like my elders.
Oh, good.
Not just do I think they do a good job. Like, I actually like them. I'm sad when they're not there because I miss them. They're good company. Yeah. So we do it once a year. There's a charity scramble. It's a guy that a lot of them know. There's like a good number of people from our church and wider Christian acquaintances, I guess, people, network that show up for this charity scramble. So yeah, I do that. I don't do very well. My one goal is not to completely embarrass myself. Fine with embarrassment. It's just not complete. Yeah. If it's not complete embarrassment, it's a win.
I count success on the golf course 2 ways. One, by how many balls I've lost in the rough. And, if it's fewer than 5, that's not too bad. And if I didn't get bit by a rattlesnake, that's the other thing. So
that one seems like a low bar. Yeah.
Well, no, not out here. Those 2 things are closely connected because when the golf balls go in the rough, you don't know who's in there. And some of the places where I have played, there are signs saying, warning for rattlesnakes. I used to play with Dirk Bergsma, who would not let a lost golf ball go. He even had a tool grabber that he carried. There was a golf club sized grabber to get balls. And there were places where I just thought, and I used to think, and I maybe I even said it, hey, Dirk, I have extras. I'll give you one. Let's let this one go. Because he would wade out there into the rough, the deserty rough where you could well run into, because that's a lot of the places where we have courses, it's rattlesnake country.
Oh.
And so that's just not something you want to, so they get in Florida, they have alligators on the golf courses. And here we have rattlesnakes. And I have not seen one. I've not run into one, but I don't want to run into one. That's the whole goal.
If they go in the rough, I'm usually like, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The animals, okay. Yes. I'm like, I'm sure there's poison ivy in there. I live most of my life trying to avoid poison
ivy. Yes, we've had that conversation before. All right. We have a mail coffer to open, and we'll do it right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends. Well, I guess it's not my day today. Why don't you walk with me while I go look for my ball? It's going to be a while. On this course, they are not joking when they call it the rough. My golf game is pretty bad, but you know what's really good? The work of the Heidelberg Reformation Association. The HRA produces 5 new articles every week, 5 podcasts a week. We run interesting quotations 6 days a week, and we run at least 1 video every week from one of our friends. And look for a weekly Heidel video. We're thankful for your prayers and your encouragement. But we could use your financial help as well. The HRA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means your gifts are tax deductible. You can make the coffer click by clicking on the donate button or by sending a check to the Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027. Well, what do you know? I found my ball. I think I'm going to let him have that one. Call or text now. 760-618-1563.
And here's a Heidelcast News update. The Heidel videos are live every week on Thursdays on YouTube and on Fridays at heidelblog.net. And you can see the archive at heidelblog.net/Heidel video.
I thought the last one that you did where you had the look of it when you had the HRA polo on, I thought that was right on the mark.
Yeah, and I have a Heidelcast t-shirt too, but
I thought the polo looked polished enough and like on brand. It was, I thought that was the sweet spot. Like yeah. I know you'd thought about it a lot as these have unfolded, and I thought, yeah, you landed it.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay. Maybe that'll become the Heidel video uniform.
Yeah, I could see that it looks professional, but not like overdone, and keeps like the brand in front of people. I thought, okay, yeah, well done.
And we have polos coming. Listeners, you're hearing this; they may be available. I haven't checked recently, so I can't say for sure whether we have polos yet, or I mean not polos. What did I say? Polos? I mean quarter zips is what I meant to say.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking.
Yeah, quarter zips.
I was thinking, I was like, then how did you get one?
Yeah, exactly. No, quarter zips. That's the next thing. We've got several different versions of quarter zips, I think, that are coming just in time for fall, right? As this is airing, as it's being released, as you're hearing this, listener, it won't be long, especially for those of you in the northern climes where you'll be wanting a Heidelcast Heidelblog quarter zip. And it will be very nice.
We should call out to listeners if they know how to help us make a tie. We need.
Oh, yeah.
We can't make a tie, but we want your help if you know how to make a tie. Oh, the gray polo looks great. Sorry, I'm all over the shop today.
We can have them made. The question is then how to sell them to people or make them available to people.
I'm not worried about people. I just want one. I'm just kidding. I want you, all the listeners, I want you to have one too.
We can order, we could create, yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could create a small number of Heidel ties. That's something we could do. But the question is how to get them in the Heidel store, the Heidel shop. So I'm not sure I don't know that we know how to do that yet, but we've got some other things that we're working on that are sort of related. So we're going to have to figure all those things out. All right, let's open the coffer.
Well, let's read some emails, shall we?
Yeah, we should. This comes from our dear friend Jason Alligood. And we confirm that's the correct pronunciation.
Alligood? I think.
Yeah,
that's what I call him. Okay. And he's not gotten mad at me.
Okay. He would be
Yeah,
because he's such a
that's
nice
true.
guy.
So Jason, tell us. Yeah, you can confirm if we've butchered your name or.
Yeah, Jason B. Alligood, or Alligood, PhD, Assistant Professor of Theology, the School of Biblical and Theological Studies, Cedarville Theological Seminary, Cedarville University.
That's not far from me, actually. Northern Ohio.
Is it? Okay, that was my next question. I was trying to think where it is. I couldn't think whether it was in Kentucky
Ohio.
or Ohio.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's isn't it near the theme park? Cedar Point?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That could be.
I think it's a good school.
So, all right, very good.
I mean, I've known students who've gone there and appreciated it. So, and Jason's there, so why wouldn't you go there?
So, yeah, why wouldn't you? Dear Super Friends, Dr. Clark has stated in the past that he leans toward psalm singing as that which the church should practice. Just one minor correction. My conviction is that we should sing all of the Word of God. But our church order says, right, which I didn't write, but to which I submit happily, that the singing of the Psalms shall have the principal place in worship. That's what the church order of the United Reformed Churches in North America, no relation to the United Reformed Churches in the UK. Completely different entities, in case you were wondering. People have contacted me to ask that question, which is why I say that. So I'm happy to sing the Psalms, love to sing the Psalms, think we should sing more Psalms more often. And obviously, principle means first. I say obviously. By practice, it doesn't seem obvious, but anyway.
Obvious to whom?
Yes, exactly. Obvious to anyone who reflects on the meaning of the word principle. Anyway, he goes on to say, I've wondered about his thoughts on artists who have modernized psalm singing, such as Shane and Shane or Sons of Korah. Assuming these songs can be sung congregationally, are these versions of the Psalms permissible for worship? And then he goes on to ask, this question then leads me to a broader one, which is, what are the bounds of the regulative principle if churches do more than sing psalms, allow instruments, modern or otherwise, etc., as I assume Pastor McDermott and Dr. Perkins' churches do? I'm especially curious about your answer on this point as I teach students from various backgrounds, Baptist, Presbyterian, Anglican, etc., about the difference between the regulative and normative principles during the ecclesiology portion of my theology classes, and find that many of them are unaware of the distinction. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, in Christ. Jason B. Alligood, etc. All right, interesting questions. I will tackle the first one because he's asking about my views. In principle, I'm in favor of contemporary settings of the Psalms. I've argued for that, and I've commented on that, written on that on the Heidel blog. And I have said that we need, in fact, one of the first things I ever wrote on the Heidel blog was wanted, better tunes for the Psalms. That was a long time ago. Not in the previous century, but it was closer to the previous century than we are now. So, I mean, that might have been, well, it couldn't have been 20 years ago, but it was almost 20 years ago, probably, that was probably 2007 or 2008, something like that. So I've been in favor of contemporary tunes for the Psalms, as long as it's suitable, right, for congregational singing. There are obviously contemporary tunes that are not meant to be sung by congregations, and they're not really suitable for corporate worship. The tone of them is probably not suitable for corporate worship. Certainly they can be joyful, and sometimes, even frequently in the Psalms, it would be entirely appropriate to have a very joyful tune, even exuberant. That would be, and then there are obviously Psalms where it would not be suitable. If you're singing an imprecatory psalm, then that would want a certain kind of a tune. If you're singing a psalm of lament, that would want a certain kind of a tune. And so the tune just needs to be appropriate to what's being sung. It needs to be appropriate to the setting. But I don't assume that things that are contemporary are necessarily inappropriate. Obviously, there are tunes that are frivolous and simply not suitable, I wouldn't think, for contemporary worship. I have not listened to Shane and Shane or Sons of Korah, so I can't comment on them at all. I don't know anything about them. Honestly, when I listen to the Psalms, typically I'm listening to a collection of Psalms done by, at least I think of him as a young man, who produced a marvelous collection, all 150 Psalms done a cappella, right, without instruments, and done according to the Genevan tunes, just because I want to get a sense of what things sounded like in Geneva. And, some of which anyway, Queen Elizabeth is supposed to have called Genevan jigs, which is interesting. So they were the contemporary tunes in some ways.
I assume you mean Elizabeth I.
Yes. Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Elizabeth I. Yes. She's the first. When I think of Queen Elizabeth, she's the one of whom I think.
I lived under the realm of Elizabeth II. So when I hear,
as did I.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
As did I. Yes. In a previous
two different centuries. Good
Not
for her.
Exactly. Yeah. And who seems to have been, for all the foibles of her family, seems to have been a pious woman, seems to have genuinely believed. So that's my sense of her from the people I've talked to who spent some time with her. Anyway, so at any rate,
I remember Sinclair Ferguson talking about how he thought that she had a genuine faith, and I think he's preached for her at their thing up in
Balmoral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's whom I had in mind. So he says, assuming these songs can be sung congregationally, are these versions of the Psalms permissible for worship? And so I didn't go and seek them out to listen to them to answer the question. So I failed, actually. I was thinking more about the second question. I will endeavor to seek out Shane and Sons of Korah. And,
you're going to love Shane and Shane.
Am I?
Yeah. Well, no, but it will give you interesting thoughts. I don't know about these. That's not necessarily just, you should do the deep dive into Shane and Shane. It's exactly your vibe. That's tongue in cheek.
That's what I thought. All right.
They may well have done a good job with this. They are talented musicians, but just they were kind of part of the contemporary Christian, music CCM scene of sorts.
So here's a tidbit that, listener, you may not know. Harrison, you may not even know this. I worked in the relatively early years of contemporary Christian music radio, CCM radio. So the second station at which I worked was one of the early CCM radio stations in the United States, KBHL in Lincoln. And if you listen to the Heidelcast a lot, you have heard jingles and the sign-off announcement. We used to sign off at midnight, and I used to play as part of the package of drops and things at the end of the show, the sign-off announcement recorded by Scott Campbell, who is the guy who invented contemporary Christian radio. There's an award named after him, the Scott Campbell Award, given out at the Dove Awards, which is the sort of the Grammys for contemporary Christian music. And Scott basically created contemporary Christian radio. He was a top 40 disc jockey and program director up in Seattle and different places, Bellingham, Kelso, and he was in Houston. He was in San Diego. He put KSON San Diego on the air, which was for maybe 6 months, 9 months, a contemporary Christian station, which is why they have the call letters KSON. Now a long time, very successful country station. It flipped country after about 6 or 9 months. Scott went to Houston and he put, I don't know if he put KFMK on the air, but he programmed KFMK into afternoons. And then he came to Lincoln and he made KBHL a professional radio station. It was a very good station.
I think you even followed Scott Campbell to KGRL in Bend, Oregon.
I did.
I didn't know that about you. Come on.
True.
Come on.
No, that's right. Yeah, you would have reason to know that.
I may have looked that up in my notes, actually. Listeners will discover, hopefully, very soon, why I would have reason to know that, but we're just going to leave that hanging.
Yeah, leave that hanging. So I have a lot of affection for contemporary Christian music. I don't like a lot of it today because I think a lot of it's, from what I hear, from what I've heard, is vacuous and mind-numbing and not very biblical, not very theological, not very reflective. Not to say everything that was done in the 70s and early 80s was, either technically brilliant or, musically, artistically, but there was, I think, more integrity, in part because the CCM business wasn't owned by a large investment corporation, or what am I thinking of? A hedge fund or something like that, which is
like a conglomerate kind of thing.
What phrase am I trying to dredge up here? From my memory from a previous century, when you have a small group of investors who go, Warren Buffett, whatever that, venture capital, that sort of thing. That's what I was looking for. So the whole business structure has completely changed, and you could see the results.
Yeah, it's fine. It's your point has always been it doesn't belong in the worship service, not that it shouldn't be there at all.
Yeah, no, I love that stuff. In fact, I've even contemplated, I don't know that I'm going to do it, but I have contemplated doing a live weekly music show.
Oh, see, I thought that you were going to say recording an album.
No,
that was going to be my favorite thing. Here is the announcement of this century.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's almost impossible. The fees and everything would be impossible. But there is a sizable fee, and so the two reasons I haven't done it and may not do it, probably won't do it, is one, there's a sizable fee to be paid to the licensing organizations to do it. And two, just the time, right? If you're going to do it, then you've got to do it. You have to show up every week and do it. But I've contemplated doing a live music show and just sort of starting from the very beginning of CCM and working our way to the current day is what I had in mind. Because people don't know. If you're not of a certain age, you may not even have heard of some of the people who invented contemporary Christian music as we know it. Chiefly Larry Norman, who was a brilliant, gifted, troubled, and possibly brain damaged fellow. He was on a plane and he wasn't strapped in, and something happened and he hit his head. And according to the biographies I've read, he actually was pretty seriously hurt.
Have you ever hit like a serious bump in turbulence?
Oh yeah, many times. But I keep my seatbelt on.
Man, those are it's like messed with my head. I mean, I've had one, but not just the the repeated bumpiness, but where the plane drops, and it still sticks with me. So I'm not. Apparently, his personality changed. So I mean, there might have been a TBI. He is deceased now. He's not with us, and we trust he's with the Lord. But really, he was very brilliant, very creative, but also highly controversial in his own time, and not always for good reasons. In other words, he was subject to a lot of criticism. In fact, Scott got a ton of criticism when he was, running these radio stations in Lincoln. There's a large congregation in Lincoln where Scott attended, and the minister attacked the station from the pulpit while they were broadcasting their sermons on the station. So it was, and that actually was quite hurtful for Scott, which was having his pastor attack him and the station. Anyway, so you could go on live, make your commentary, wait the exact length of time for people to go look up that song on YouTube.
then come back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably
more work than most listeners probably want to do, but
that's right. Yeah, that probably wouldn't work because you'd have the 2 minutes and 30 seconds of silence in between the commentary and the listening.
Well, except they'd be listening to the song.
Yes, exactly.
So
yeah, that's interesting. It's creative. Probably not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just if you really need something to do. You probably have ways to occupy your time.
Yeah, I do.
This is the Heidelcast.
Am I allowed to answer this question even though it's just for you?
No, that's just the first part. Then there's all this stuff.
I know, but I have thoughts on that.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Well, first, before I do that, I forgot to do this earlier. I should give a shout out to Jim Jordan, who is an OPC missionary down in Uruguay. Jim was a classmate of mine at Westminster, my first year of seminary. Great guy, and he's in Uruguay now. And he sent me a message, very kind message, that he listens to us. So
nice.
Shout out to Jim. Jim and I used to eat dinner most nights of the week together there on campus. So
hey, Jim, thank you for listening. That's fantastic. I hope everything's going well. In is it Uruguay or Uruguay? I have no idea.
No,
I think that is
Jim
the first
can tell
time.
us.
It's the first time I've ever said that word.
Really?
I don't believe I've ever before said Uruguay or Uruguay. I think I've always heard it Uruguay, but I have no idea if that's correct. I'm sorry.
I think I saw Uruguay play soccer in London.
Oh.
Maybe it was Paraguay. Who has?
Well, there's Paraguay.
Probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
They had the light blue uniforms. So let's see.
Didn't the U.S. just defeat Paraguay in the World Cup?
This was a while ago. I mean, that could be, and I don't know.
I watched the
Uruguay. It was Uruguay. Those are the uniforms. There we go. So I have seen Uruguay play football, as they call it there, against Brazil.
Football.
Something like that.
Football.
It was very exciting for the men of our church who followed soccer. Yeah. And I was there with them, and that was good. I was glad to be with them.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Anyway, for this question, I actually think that this is a thing that we should do. Now, style of these particular artists aside, I don't think that that's actually the focus of the question. I just think modernized melodies, that's, I think, what we have in view here. I actually think that that's needed and would help people appreciate the Psalms more, because a lot of the tunes are difficult to sing for modern voices. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that's hard to overcome and get into. And if we would embrace that, although the content of the Psalm is inspired, the tunes that we use are not, at least they're not inspired by the Holy Spirit. And therefore, we need to adjust to use the things that help us sing the Spirit-inspired content most effectively. So actually, not is it just permissible, I think that this is warranted to help us have tunes for the Psalms that are singable for modern voices.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's true that some of the Genevan tunes are not very singable.
How blessed is the man whose walk is not in evil counsel, which the wicked plot, who does not stand where sin its pleasure offers, and will not take his seat among the scoffers, but his delight is in God's covenant law. By night and day he ponders it withal.
So that gives you a sense. So that's the Genevan tune. That's Michael Owen's setting or performance of part of Psalm 1 from Geneva in the 16th century, at least a sample of the Genevan tunes that people would have been singing in the 16th and 17th centuries. And you can get a sense from that why people maybe aren't singing them now. Although the Canadian Reformed churches sang, I think, exclusively Genevan tunes until fairly recently, because their book of praise was composed of. I know you have feelings about that.
Their book of praise comprises whatever you're going to say, or is composed of.
Is composed of, yes. I agree with you. Genevan tunes. I think they've added to that now. So I don't think that's true now. But in my copy, which is, pretty sure from a previous century, is Genevan tunes. So that gives you a sense anyway. And so you can hear there's a marked difference between the Genevan tunes and the kind of tunes that we sing now, because there have been a lot of influences on American culture, American music, which have changed our sensibility and our experience. And because not very many people are actually proportionally in church anymore and singing together much anymore, lots of congregations simply sit and watch the praise band. I mean, there is some singing, but that would be a very challenging, I think, set of tunes, most of them. Although some of those tunes we still know. We still use, for example, the tune from Psalm 100. It's often listed Genevan in your Psalter hymnal, or even just a hymnal might have Psalm 100 in it. And that's a Genevan tune. And that's still very singable. Everybody knows Psalm 100. At least lots of people know Psalm 100.
The Hylocast.
All right. And then the second part of the question, the broader question, what are the bounds of the regulative principle if churches do more than sing psalms, allow instruments, modern or otherwise, etc., as I assume Pastor McDermott and Dr. Perkins' churches do. And my congregation does as well. So my personal views don't determine what happens in the Escondido United Reformed Church. So I'm the outlier. In fact, I doubt very many people in the URCs would agree with me. So we should make that clear. I'm not speaking for my congregation. I'm not speaking for the United Reformed Churches. I'm just speaking for myself when I say that my convictions are that instruments ought not to be used. That's the traditional Reformed view. That was the ancient Christian view, but is not the view that is held the majority for certainly the last 100 years and probably more than that. So the overwhelming majority of Christians, including P&R Christians, Presbyterian and Reformed Christians, now believe that they are permitted. So we should get that out on the table. And the regulative principle, let's say what that is so everybody knows what we're talking about. What is the regulative principle? What's the normative principle? And what's the difference between them? I think that's really important.
Agreed. So the regulative principle is the control on worship that says we do in worship only that which God commands. So for us to have a valid reason to do it in a worship service, so between call to worship and benediction, it should be because there's ground, instruction to that end in Holy Scripture. And then the normative principle is the idea that, that control factor for worship is that we're allowed to do anything that Scripture does not forbid in worship.
Yeah.
So it's more open-ended, and the thing that prevents us from doing it is Scripture has said, do not do this when you worship.
Yeah.
So it's alternative approaches to what the criteria for the elements and what we include in our services are.
So the two principles ask different questions. So the regulative principle, or the rule of worship, as Calvin put it, asks, what must we do? And the normative principle asks, what may we do? The principles produce different questions, and the Reformed churches all confess the regulative principle, as it's come to be known. Somebody attributed it to John Murray, that formulation, the regulative principle of worship. I don't know that to be the fact, but I also don't know it not to be the fact. Anyway, 96, Heidelberg 96 says, what does God require in the second commandment? And the answer is that we in no way make any image of God nor worship him in any other way than he has commanded us in his word. So the immediate question is images, but the principle is nor worship him in any other way than he has commanded us in his word. And that's the same principle that you find in the Westminster Standards.
So I've got it.
Oh, good.
Westminster 21, chapter 21, paragraph 1. I'm going to skip the first sentence to get straight to the matter for us. But the acceptable way of worshiping the true God is instituted by himself and so limited by his own revealed will that he may not be worshipped according to the imaginations and devices of men or the suggestions of Satan, seems reasonable, under any visible representation or any other way not prescribed in the Holy Scripture.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not laughing at the Westminster Confession, just at the commentary. It seems reasonable not to be listening to the suggestions of Satan.
That's of all the things that might be contested in the Westminster Standard.
That probably,
yeah,
exactly.
Christians should agree. Let's not listen to Satan's suggestion.
Exactly. We should, yes. Oh, those stodgy Presbyterians always turning down Satan's suggestions. Yes. Oh, there you go. There's a slogan. Ignoring Satan's suggestions since 1646.
There you go. Yes.
I like that very much. That's good. We could do something with that. So, yeah, that is a wonderful statement of the rule of worship. And that's the view shared by all the confessional Presbyterian and Reformed churches. There are some potential exceptions that test the rule. It's not clear in my mind exactly how Zurich related to that always. I think at least in the early years of the Reformation, it's not clear to me whether Zurich necessarily agreed with that. I think by the time you get to the middle and late 17th century, I think the consensus across the Reformed world is very strong. And I say that on the basis of, for example, this is the source I know best for late 17th century Zurich, and that's J.H. Heidegger. I don't think you can, wedge a dime between Geneva and Zurich by the time you get to the end of the 17th century. And I say that because Heidegger wrote the Helvetic consensus formula, and then Turretin signed onto it, kibitzed. And when you read Heidegger, as I have, at least the medulla of the medulla, the marrow, little marrow that we translated and published in the Classic Reformed Theology series, it's just, I don't see any substantive difference at all. Anyway, I'm a little unclear as to exactly where Zurich was on this in the early 16th century.
Well, Zwingli is an interesting figure in this because he went the other way. We're not going to sing, which isn't really following the regulative principle.
Is that true, though? I'm not sure that's true.
Okay.
That's part of why I'm confused. So there are scholars writing on both sides of this question, and so it's vague. People will say, well, there was no music. That may have been true, that they didn't use musical instruments. Again, I'm not entirely clear about that. And then they infer from that there was no singing. I don't believe personally that it's true that they didn't sing. I'm reasonably sure that they didn't use instruments.
If they weren't singing, that was definitely true.
Yeah. Yes. But I think that they did sing in Zurich. And the interesting thing here is that Zwingli was quite the humanist, right? I mean, he's a serious humanist, and he was an accomplished musician and loved music, played music, wrote music on his, privately, but he didn't think it should be used in the services. And of course, that would have been that was the position of the ancient Christian world in the 2nd century. If you walked into a Christian service, there were no musical instruments, and they were very intentional about that because they believed that the instruments, well, two reasons that they gave. One, the pagans did it, and we don't want people to confuse us with the pagans when they walk into our services. And two, they belong to the types and shadows. And that second ground becomes the essential ground held by the Reformed churches in the 16th and 17th centuries, that we don't use instruments because they belong to the types and shadows. Calvin was very adamant about that and wrote and spoke very strongly about it. And for the most part, people didn't really push back in the 16th and 17th centuries. There was some popular resistance to it. For example, in the Netherlands, the ministers wanted to get rid of instruments. The people liked instruments, and the magistrates supported the people. And the magistrates tended to be Erasmian, humanist, and somewhat moralistic, but not particularly confessionally reformed. And so the magistrates tended to support instruments. And so ultimately, over the course of probably a century, the ministers lost that fight. the magistrates and the people won, and ultimately instruments were used in the Dutch Reformed churches, although not without controversy. When the Afscheiding happened in 1834, I think they got rid of instruments because when they came to the New World, the reason I say that is when they came to the New World and began establishing what became the Christian Reformed Church in 1854, I don't believe they used instruments, and they didn't use them until the probably 20s and 30s. And certainly by the early 30s, they were using instruments. And I discussed this a little bit in Recovering the Reformed Confession when R.B. Kuyper, in his volume from the 1920s, As to Being Reformed, tells the story of a CRC elder who was scandalized by the fact that I think an RCA congregation had instituted an organ, and he called it Dagon, the elder did. And Kuyper sort of ridicules this guy for being, bigoted, narrow-minded, or what have close-minded. I take that as an indicator that there was, even into the 20s, in some places, this would have been in Grand Rapids, pretty severe hostility to the use of musical instruments in the CRC in some quarters. So anyway, all that to say that there was a pretty strong consensus. Now, there's another outlier in all of this, and that would be Strasbourg, where Bucer was. I don't think Bucer was much convinced of the regulative principle. My impression of him is that he agreed with the normative principle. So I think he's something of an outlier. And when you read the literature on the history of worship, when people want to, particularly people from the main line, the PCUSA, and others who are not particularly comfortable with the, say, Genevan approach, they will talk to you about Strasbourg and maybe Basel as to what happened in worship. And they will use those two places as kind of the baseline for Reformed practice. And that so minimizes the tension and the difference between what was done and what's being done now. And it makes it look like, well, we're doing what we've always done. Well, you may be doing what was done in Strasbourg in some places, in Bucer's congregation, or in Basel, that may be, but you're not doing what was done in Geneva and in other places. Anyway, the story is wonderfully complex, mixed, and therefore somewhat complicated. But if you ask the Westminster Divines, instruments are out. It's not entirely clear. I think you and I discussed this one time by email, and it's on the Heidelberg. You can see this quotation. One of the divines wrote a letter or something. I don't remember exactly the context, but the comment was that they had removed the organ from St. Paul and burned it in the street. And the question was what St. Paul it was, from which St. Paul.
Yeah.
That they had removed.
Because at that point, there was no St. Paul's Cathedral.
Exactly.
As we know it. That building is it's a Christopher Wren. So it's after the Great Fire, post 1660.
Yeah, and this letter dates prior to that. So
yeah, so there was St. Paul's Cross, but that may have been, that was a significant place for where notable sermons were preached there. Whether it had an organ is a different question. There's still a marker. It's the same spot, roughly speaking, and there's still a marker where the actual St. Paul's Cross was located, and it's just kind of in the back area of the courtyard for St. Paul's Cathedral. Or there was, or still is, St. Paul's Church in Covent Garden.
This is the note I had in mind. This is from Robert Bailey, Letters and Journals written by the deceased Mr. Robert Bailey, principal of the University of Glasgow, and this published in Edinburgh in 1775. And the letter dates from 18 February 1644, and it says, "We had so contrived it with my Lord Wharton that the lords that day did petition the assembly that they might have one of the divines attend their house for a week, as it came about to pray God with them. Some days thereafter, the lower house petitioned for the same. Both their desires were gladly granted, for by this means the relics of the service book, which till then was used every day in both houses, are at last banished. Paul's and Westminster are purged of their images, organs, and all which gave offense. My Lord Manchester made 2 fair bonfires of such trinkets, at Cambridge. Okay, so the bonfires were at Cambridge, but the trinkets were removed from Paul's and Westminster. So whatever the exact location, and the fire apparently was in Cambridge, but the point stands, right? That's a fairly decent indicator of the attitude of the divines towards the use of musical instruments, that they weren't used.
See, I'm spinning tires on which building was. But that's the historian in me.
Yeah, well,
that's probably St. Paul's Cross, given that. Like, I doubt that they would be that interested in St. Paul's Church in Covent Garden, although James Ussher was preaching there in the early 1640s. Which, I mean, makes it, a point of interest, I do think. I was trying to think, was there because it's St. Margaret's in Cambridge, I think, where Boozer is buried.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you go, listener, to heidelblog.net/resources, there is a resource page on instruments in worship. And it's actually reasonably well organized. And there's some biblical reflection. There's historical reflection about the absence of musical instruments from the synagogue, the church fathers rejecting musical instruments for public worship, historical surveys about the use of organs in general and in worship. There's a fascinating quotation from Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas said that we don't use instruments, that would be Judaizing. By that, he means going back to the types and shadows. A note from the 1559 Geneva Bible on musical instruments. Several quotations from Calvin that are a lot of fun on musical instruments. If you like some fiery rhetoric from Geneva, quotation from John Reynolds and History of the Reformation of Worship. Perkins, William Perkins against instruments, and so forth. And then some historical stuff. Stuff from the 5th century. The Hungarians were very strongly opposed to instruments, and they're very pointed in their confessions about the use of instruments. A judgment from a 1574 Dutch provincial synod on against organs, and in Dort, a synod at Dort, not the Synod of Dort, but a regional synod at Dort, I believe. I don't think it was national, but it could have been. I don't know right now. From 1578. Basically saying organs are to be removed ASAP, right? So that's from a church order, an early Reformed church order. The Dillenberger Synod the same year did the same. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. So check it out. There's lots of interesting stuff there. So the practice that we have today in our churches is not the practice of the earliest Christian churches. And probably now the best information I have is that there were most likely no musical instruments in Christian churches and in Christian worship until probably about the 11th century. If you ask the 16th and 17th century writers, they will tell you that musical instruments entered the worship of the church in the 7th or 8th century. I think 8th century. They pointed to permission given by the Bishop of Rome for an instrument in Spain, but that is now disputed by some modern historians, the effect of that, whether it happened or what. But at any rate, even if it's 8th century, that's still rather late. So that's the context. So I'm with those. But as I say, in most of our churches, almost all of our churches, the only denomination that I know of off the top of my head that does not use instruments in North America among the P&R churches, the NAPARC, North American Presbyterian and Reformed Council churches, would be the RPCNA. They have preserved the traditional practice of the ancient Christian church and the earlier classical Reformed P&R churches. They don't use musical instruments. Are there others that I'm not thinking of?
That was the main one. So to the question, though, that's the background to the question, actually.
Yes.
Really, he's saying, if you do use instruments, how do you think about it in light of the regulative principle? And my church does use instruments. That's what we do. And so what are some maybe effective ways to come at this? So Jason's highlighting that he teaches students from a number of different backgrounds. Like, what are the thought patterns here that help people even understand what's going on in this issue? And I think one of the things that might help us just where we are, in the church in America.
Yeah.
And thinking about how do we relate to this? Because most churches in America use instruments. And the thing that I want to point out is that the argument has tended to be that instruments help us sing. And then if that be the case, that should be our use for them, is as aids to help the congregation sing. If we're going to have them, they shouldn't be something that overtakes the singing. They should be support. In my mind, that means minimalism.
Yeah. Rather than maximalism.
And not production.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you're going to say, I believe the regulative principle, and I'm not persuaded that it precludes instruments. Okay. I still think that, you know, instrumental solos are not
there's no justification
helpful
for those.
Yeah.
On the basis of the regulative principle, there's no justification for instrumental solos. And frankly, I would like to see someone defend the use of what is really what used to be known in vaudeville as traveling music. So when the minister moves from one place to another, we cover that travel with music. Why are we doing that? I'm convinced we don't even know why we're doing it. It's just what we're used to and we like it. And so we do it. Well, what we don't understand is, and actually there's a book on this that's on my list of things to read this summer, When Church Became Theater. It's an interesting.
Oh, yeah. I did a big episode on Presbycast.
Ah, very good. So you know this.
About that book.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about that.
Our dear friend Brad Isbell. So he's a HRA board member and host of the wonderful podcast, the Presbycast, on which we both appeared. So, and so he's the one who pointed me to that book. At any rate, we have incorporated into our worship practices that are from the entertainment world and from the business world, et cetera, that don't really have much to do with what we confess. The other thing to think about here, and I know, again, I hold a minority view, and I understand that. But when I ask people, well, why do you do what you do? Here's what you confess. We only do what God requires, what God commands. So that's our principle. And great, we agree on the principle. So how do you square X? Let's say you have instruments and so forth, and you sing non-canonical songs. How do you square that with the principle? And what I almost always get back is, well, they're not forbidden. Then I reply, okay, let's go back and say, what is our principle? We only do what's commanded. Again, so why do you do what you do? And they come back to me and say, because it's not forbidden. When people do that, I think it reveals to me that their actual practical principle is not the regulative principle at all. It's the normative principle, right? When you tell me we do X because it's not forbidden, you're following the normative principle, not the regulative principle. And the other thing I want to say here, and since I'm probably in trouble now, is to say that people have said to me, well, they're just a circumstance. That was the argument that Ed Clowney made in response to the RPCNA many years ago. And I think I documented that in Recovering the Reformed Confession. And at any rate, and my reply to that is, no, instruments are not a circumstance. A circumstance is something that's dictated by nature. So we have to meet at a shared time and a shared place, and we have to use a shared language or have a translator. Those are circumstances. Circumstances are things, according to the Westminster Divines, that are dictated by the light of nature. Musical instruments are not required by nature. People sing a cappella all the time. So evidently, musical instruments are not required for singing because it's easy to find lots of people singing a cappella. People do it all the time. Right? We sing Happy Birthday a cappella all the time, right? It's easy to find examples of people singing a cappella. And then people say, well, then it's not beautiful. Okay, that may be. But I've heard, lots of congregations singing with instruments, and it wasn't beautiful. And then I want to know, why do you assume that what you think is beautiful is what the Lord thinks is beautiful? On what basis do you assume that?
Within this, I guess, because the question in front of us is about, multiple traditions that don't all confess the same thing. How do we think together even about this issue?
Well, we've helped, right? We've given clarity about the difference between the normative and the regulative.
No, I know.
Those traditions hold to the normative.
Yes. And part of what I still want to get across is if people write off, like, okay, I don't buy that about instruments.
Yeah.
I still want there to be something on the table for reflection and a factor that ought to be considered, even if you don't buy the premise. And that's why I'm emphasizing the aspect of these instruments should not overtake the singing of the congregation. They should be a prop, as in a supporting prop, not a prop for a play.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
They should be a support mechanism to help people sing so that the people's singing is still the thing.
Yeah. And even under the normative principle, do you really need a band?
Well, so that's part of what I'm trying to get across. My own take would be it's not very thoughtful just to dismiss the premise or come to it. Yeah, I didn't mean that in a pejorative sense. Disagree with the premise.
Yeah, reject the premise.
Yeah, reasoned or not, reject the premise and then say, so take the rails off and not be concerned about any governing factors for the way that we use these things. I still think even if you reject the premise, there ought to be considerations in place about what kind of use for these things.
I have a question, and I want to challenge people a little bit here. I'm going to be the bad guy in this episode. But let's think about this. If the electricity went out on Sunday morning, there's a storm, you're gathered for worship, and the wind comes up and the electricity goes out, could you still conduct a service? Or would you be unable to continue your service? I think that's a really interesting question. And if you put that to the historic Christian church, they would say, what's electricity? But after you explain to them that we captured fire and we learned how to make it do things for us, that they would not have any problem with this because we conducted Christian worship services for more than 1,000 years without electricity. It's not a problem. And we ought to think about that. If there were no electricity and the band, I guess the drummer doesn't need electricity, but otherwise, if the band could not function for whatever reason, would you go through withdrawal? So I have a theory, and my theory is that I can't prove it, but I think I'm right. A lot of us are addicted to contemporary worship because it stimulates in us a dopamine release or the happy chemicals in our brain that make us feel euphoric. And so I want to ask you, if you couldn't have that, would you still gather before the face of God and call on his name and praise him? Or is the experience of the dopamine release so integral? Because I think that's what people mean, frankly, oftentimes when they say we really worship or we didn't really worship today. I think what they're really saying is I didn't get the dopamine release. I'm really concerned about this, that it's become such a part of worship. So I appreciate what you're saying about asking people to be thoughtful, even under the normative principle. Can you be thoughtful enough to say, why are we doing what we're doing? Have we done something to change the essential nature of worship? Why, for example, the normative principle doesn't require you to follow the revivalist Finneyite pattern of worship, of singing a series of songs, contemporary songs, choruses, etc., praise songs, P&W songs, or worship music for 30 minutes, followed by a sermon. That comes from 19th century revivalism. That doesn't come from 18th century latitudinarian Anglicanism. In other words, you could follow the normative principle and have a completely different service, and arguably one that would be more reverent than what's being done now. One more thing, and I'll shut up. Are we conscious when we gather, even under the normative principle, whether it's the stated or assumed principle, that we are before the face of the living God? And I'm deeply concerned that we've lost that sense. Sometimes when I've led worship, I've said to the children and to the adults, I usually say it this way: children, do you realize that right now it's almost as if there's no roof on the building and the heavens are opened? And the Apostle Paul says that angels are present in our worship. Did you know that? And that we are before the face of a living God when we're gathered this way.
Yeah, that point is really profound. And I think that we easily forget that we are not the audience of worship. God is the first audience of worship. We are there not to observe worship, but to bring worship to the living God. And I think I saw it on Twitter, the quip, I think it was Matt Smethurst who posted it. And I've sort of appropriated it into my repertoire of ways to think about things, and it was, Pastor, I didn't enjoy worship today. That's okay. We weren't worshiping you.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a great reminder. We hope that it does have fruit and benefit for each of us. That's true. Not denying that in the slightest, but the service is for God. It's a service of worship to God himself. And we should remember that the first audience of worship is God. Actually, we have done worship with the power out.
Yeah.
And it came on halfway through, which was kind of jarring as I'm about to read the scripture and the lights come back on. And
yeah.
But we have done it, and it requires minor tweaks, but not massive departures. So when we have managed it. The third thing, as to the beautiful aspect, and this is, this isn't an argument. Admittedly, this is an anecdote, but I hope it's a meaningful one, at least to some. We have instruments and we have good musicians, and they do make beautiful music. Understand that. What I will say is that the most meaningful aspects for me personally, in terms of congregational singing, is when I can hear the voice of the congregation. And this is a me aspect. I understand that. This is a subjective point. But as the pastor, knowing that God has given me a stewardship of people whom I love dearly and am glad to be their pastor, when I can hear them sing and hear their praises to God, not just knowing that the words are going on and not just through the mic, but when I can hear the congregation, that's one of the things that actually keeps me going in it and glad, and seeing just even small glimpses of what the Lord is doing in our midst. Less interested in how on key and all of that is. I actually do think that's a beautiful thing. And that's from the perspective of a pastor, delighted in what he sees happening amongst his people and how they're glad to sing to the God who made and redeemed them. But actually, I do think that that's a beautiful thing. And I don't want that to be overshadowed by some sort of accompaniment.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by Heidelberg Reformation Association.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast, the Heidelcast.